Look at that. Welcome, welcome. Gatekeepers. What is happening? Happy Memorial Day. Number one thing. Number one, right out of the gate. Right out of the gate. See what I did there? Wait a minute. You see that? Forget me not. Don't forget them. Because we're all here because they were there. That's what I got to say about that. Love y'all. Look at y'all. Look at you. It's so wonderful to see y'all tonight. So thank you on this Memorial Day here in the States, here in beautiful downtown Jersey Shore, where the traffic is thick and a bit crazy, and lovely weather that it is. We have, I think, tornado warnings and storms and thunder boomers and all that stuff headed our way. So, as it said in that video that just went through, the people that will dance with you in the rain will stand with you in the storm. And I know everybody here, that's what we're doing. Hello, gatekeepers, light workers, believers in the weird and the strange and the woo-woo. We've got some good treats for you tonight, and I'm going to be surprised. They're going to be surprised because we didn't tell each other what we were bringing. I said, just bring an odd and crazy story. And can you imagine asking Mr. Steve Stockton if he has an odd and crazy story? It's kind of giggles, right? So I didn't have to ask. I said, just put a couple in your pocket and come on tonight, and let's just meet on the front porch in the storm with the stuff going in and out, and the Wi-Fi is blinking like an EMF meter in a haunted house in the basement, on a Friday night, what I mean? So let's bring old Mr. Steve Stockton in here, and then we'll introduce our next guest. What do you think about that? Is that all right with you, gatekeepers? Welcome, one and all. So let me bring Steve in here so we can say hi to y'all. Come on in here, Steve. Mr.
Hey,
Steve
everybody.
Stockton.
How you doing?
Woo, golly, do you look beautiful. My gosh. Every time I think, could he get any prettier? And I say, no, it's not possible. And then here you go. Here you go.
Check out this hat. I don't know if
my
you can see
God.
it. My wife got
my God. Oh, my God. I am scared of you tonight. I am serious. I am serious.
I love it. I've never worn a flat cap before. I kind of like it.
If you had a cigar, I might just pass out. You look wonderful. I'm just pleased as pie to see.
Married life and about to be a daddy.
Say no more. Say no more. Get all your rest in now, because you're about to have no sleep for the next 3 years of your life, but it'll be the happiest you've ever been. So,
once told
strap
me
yourself
I
in.
need to stick my head in a barrel and holler, "Daddy."
It's wonderful. It's just good news. See, folks, there's good news out there. There's good news all over the place. I bet you everybody put a piece of good news in here. Dig down deep. Some of you got to have to reach deep in that dark under maybe the bed or back of the linen closet or something like that. Maybe somebody has to run down to the basement and pull that old dented box out and find something good. Just something good. I don't care if somebody opened the door for you, or you found a penny, and or you threw some change on the counter for the person in front of you that didn't have change, or I try to do that every once in a while to do it real quick, because like somebody 30, and I know they have it, they're just digging, and you can kind of feel the tension. It's a good lesson in energy. Think about it. You're standing at the register, you have a cashier, chewing gum and popping, whatever, probably on a phone. Anyway, and the lady's trying to come up with 38 cents. They have it. It's in the bottom of the purse somewhere, but you can feel it the tension start to grow. And the nerves and the energy start to shift, and you can change it so quick by just digging in your old pocket. See if you throw a couple dimes on the counter. The energy changes completely. Even if have you ever done that, Steve? Think about it. It's something small, but that is a quick way to see how. I look for opportunities like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm just crazy. How about you? How are you doing, Mr. Stockton?
I'm doing good. It's cool and rainy here in my corner of New England. Love it. 66 and light rain.
Well, we've got heavy rain.
Tonight, I think we're supposed to get the tail end of that. So
hot, humid. And red on the radar. We are red on the radar, my friend. Anything's possible. Anything from flying fish to frogs to.
What should we say? Flying something
good
else.
God knows what else. I did not know that meat falling out of the sky thing was so. It's not as rare as one would think.
Transylvania University in North Carolina, they've still got some of it preserved from a
crazy
meat there back in the 1800s or early 1900s. I think.
Scariest thing about that was
in their medical museum
when they said somebody tried it and that's how they found out what it was. Wait a minute, we've got a private chat here going on. Did you send me a private chat?
Not me.
Hello, family. Oh, okay. Lynn,
you're in the private chat.
I think you're in the private chat, honey. Pop over to the other. So anyway, let's get Lynn in here, but I want to say hi to all these wonderful people too. Is there anything you want to add to this? She's a friend of the show. She's got decades in the medical field, decades as an experiencer, a medium, learning right along with all of us, but so many wonderful experiences, and an author of many books, from the haunted house she couldn't live in to advice for your teenager, right, Steve?
Yep.
Well, let's get her in here. Miss Lynn Monet, everybody. You ready here? Oh, she's got the t-shirt on.
Yay! Hey,
wonderful.
Hey, your shirt makes my boobs look good.
Oh, woo! Your boobs make my shirt look good, honey.
And Steve, you're looking very dapper.
You set me up for that.
Yeah, there you go.
We walked right into it. Of course, we're going to go for it. Listen. I love you, baby. Thanks for coming on. We're going to have fun tonight. Everybody's just bringing an odd tale, an odd, whatever, a ghost story, a thingamajiggy bob, whatever tonight. We don't know what each other's got in their pockets. I've got a couple little things. Like I said, number one for me today is this right here. Do not forget. So I'm going to be throwing some flags and some eagles and stuff like that, and you're just going to have to ride it with me because it's my show. So, that's the way it is. Because listen, in all seriousness, I'm here because they were there. Plain and simple. I'm a vet. I've known some wonderful, wonderful warriors. And I just don't even going back decades. So, and family and the bloodline, and it's a rough day. So, in their memory, this is for them. And I've got a couple of. I went right to my source. I'm an alum of the Army.com, their page, and took some ghost stories off of there. So I'm going to share with you later too. So for them. So that's kind of our paranormal way of celebrating Memorial Day. That's kind of cool, right? So how are you doing, love? Tell us about it. What you been up to? Both of you.
You want to go first, Steve? Well, we all know what Steve's been up to because he's got a baby on the way.
Bump, bump.
I stand accused, but happily guilty.
He aims well, but anyway, I'm actually, I have my third book in publishing, my third book of the Omnipresent series in publishing, and I'm writing the fourth one. Compliments of Cisco's idea of the name of Omnipresent, No Place Like Home. So I'm in the process of doing that. From that will spawn basically another 2 books off of that series talking about the Fae and elementals, and then I'll continue on and have a 5th book in the Omnipresent series. So that's what I'm doing, and I can't see the chat. For some reason it says I have to hook up with YouTube, but I do send my love and light to everybody. Well,
RP's already leaving because we're too vile, he says.
Oh, well.
Somebody told me to keep my shirt on. It wasn't the shirt that was the problem. It was the pants.
Hello, D-Rock and Scott's Life. I love you both. How y'all doing? Yeah. Cat's in here. Cat's been slinging. We did a little mystery earlier, a couple hours before the show, because I don't know what, 13 hours to process, Steve, on the inner tubes. Listen, this is like combat podcast in here. This is, first of all, sometimes you just hit buttons and hope, and I put it up there. I was going to do it yesterday afternoon because that didn't go well yesterday. Anyhow, so we just did it this afternoon, but it worked out well. A couple hours before the show, a little murder mystery, it was nice. And everybody followed me over here. So thank you all who followed us over. Hey, Jack, how you doing? Hey, Gary, welcome in. Frozen Moments. How you
I
doing,
just had a
Froze?
premiere, Stories in the Rain, for about an hour and a half, and I
You
brought
did
people
Shadow
over
People too,
too.
didn't you?
So yeah, that
Didn't you?
was on. Did Shadow People on Missing Persons and Mysteries, and then Rain Stories Volume 1 on Tales Untold.
How do you keep track, my friend?
So I don't. I got
It's
stuff
like,
everywhere.
yep, I know. But hey, Ted, how you doing, sweetie? Hanging? Do you see anybody that we missed here? If we missed you, it was certainly not on purpose. I promise. Welcome. Hey, Ron, how you doing? And I think we grabbed everybody. Uncommon. Welcome. Renice,
Gary Davis
hey,
in
sweetie.
there.
Hey, sweetie, how you
Rose
doing?
Moments. Ghost Lord,
I'm
Cathetus.
hollering them out for. Hey, Travis, I hope you're doing well, sweetie. You hang in there, one step at a time, baby. It's we all been there, one step at a time. Stay positive, stay in the light. Do not let it beat you. It's not an option. Everybody, same thing. It's we were talking about storms because in that one video, it's about the rain and those who will dance in the rain with you will stand with you in the storm. And we're all sitting here going through these storms. So I wanted to say something again. 2 weeks ago, Lynn, I think Steve's aware. Lynn, I don't know if you are, but anyway, I did a show where I think I channeled the whole daggum thing.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it was like almost 2 hours where I was just losing time. And I was talking about all these references between this wonderful weather channel, and I can't holler it out enough. Ryan Hall, y'all, on YouTube. It's the best weather. If there's a storm warning or a tornado, they have a whole staff, and the way they've compartmentalized all of the different duties, the storm chasers, the meteorologists, the home professionals that do amazing job. And I've watched them save lives. That's why I get excited about it, because man, you're talking about making a difference, and it's just amazing. And then the people watching and donate. I think last time we talked about it, Steve, I told you they were like 81,000. They're almost half a million now. They're up to the high 400,000s. Because people see that other people lose their house and home, and they're so grateful it's not them. Today it was Kentucky. Some of it's headed our way. We'll get tales of it. I'm in the East Coast, but it just, again, it reminds you all how fragile we are, how quick things change, how much it's important to keep contact and do whatever you can to make a difference. Even if it's donating $5, $10 to something like that, where you actually get to see them handing out cards. They'll have the storm chasers are there because they chase the storm there. So they wire them money and they buy gift cards and blankets and food and water and assistance, animal, pet food, help find animals and displaced. It's just, you see that almost like a mega butterfly effect kind of thing. It's very cool. So Ryan Hall, y'all, get over there, subscribe. It doesn't cost a thing, and at least see if a storm is in your way. But this show I was channeling, I was talking all about that. And at the same time, I could not see the chat. It was like blurry, and I had to lean in really close to do it. And it was weird. And I didn't want to mess with any buttons because, and y'all have seen the Hot Mess Express, right? So I'm talking about all this stuff and I'm giving out all this advice, and I have no idea where it's coming from. It was crazy. And the whole time we've got people in the chat that were actually going through it live. And I had no idea. And then I look back after the fact and I see how the chat all came together and throwing out ideas and encouragement and prayers and good energy and everything else. And I mean, it got to the point where, I'm not calling out the person here, but if they want to jump in and they're here and they want to say it, they can. But it got so close to it, lifted the back of their house and put it back down. Like, boom, boom. This is enough to, and the whole time we're all calm. We're just, it was incredible, Lynn. So what do you think on that? And I'll shut up.
I think very well that I think that can very well happen. I mean, they were talking on the news about how this month in May, that every single day a tornado has touched down somewhere, especially in like Iowa, Illinois, Oklahoma, Nebraska, except for one day this month. Otherwise, every single day is a touchdown. That they've had over 500 warnings or watches just in the month of May than how unusual this weather is. But I do very much believe that that prayer and collectively pulling together the consciousness can shift things and move things away. So, and I'm thankful that you were able to do that for that person. And also, thank you for your service, everybody who has been in service for this Memorial Day. It was very much appreciated. So, yeah, I do believe that can happen.
It was pretty wild. Steve, I know you believe in that, the automatic writing and it's just like, it's not like it's a big thing that happens, just sometimes it's just
sometimes it's there. You tap into that, whatever's out there in the ether, especially writing fiction, and it just takes off. I've got some fiction stuff I've been writing and putting up on Tales Untold, and some of that it starts to just I hear an idea in my head and then off it goes and it writes itself.
Here she is. Yeah. I mean, it was such a calm energy, though. It was so amazing, and I don't know how to express that. It was like everybody, it was just, it was like jumping on stage with a bunch of musicians and playing a song and it just rides, It was like that. It was really, really cool for 2 hours. Insane. Wow. It was insane.
That's amazing. And excuse me, I thought that you were talking about the lady's house lifting with the tornado. But yes, I totally agree with you. Currently, right now,
it did. You're right. Yeah,
that I'm writing Omnipresent, No Place Like Home. I'm getting the downloads. So I mean, because some of this information I've never even heard of before. So, and it's coming through just something that's basically self-writing itself. So yes, that happens.
It's incredible. It really is. Really is. So Steve, listen, I wanted to ask you before I forget, because sometimes I forget the show, to mention your radio show. I know Lynn and I have both been on it. Can you tell us? Yeah, it's great.
Lewis Ground Zero Radio Network airs on Sunday nights from 9 to 11 live, and then they put it behind a paywall for a couple of weeks, and then you can find it on all the Spreakers and Buzzsprouts and iHeartRadio and places like that. But you've both been on, and I wanted to ask Lynn tonight, if you've got an hour that you could spare sometime later this week, I'd like to put you back on. Yeah. Okay.
I'd love to. And speaking of that, I have to sign off tonight at 9:15.
Okay, dokie.
Because I'm
all right. Well, make sure we'll get yours in.
I double booked. So
you double parked? She double parked.
Well, I double booked. So yeah.
I had that happen the other day. I had a show I'd agreed to be on months ago, and then made another one like a week before that was supposed to be on, and then I had to cancel on one of them. But
that's okay, honey. We'll just make sure we do yours first. We can do yours. Okay,
because I didn't know
stories you wanted to bring.
Yeah, I didn't know how long the show was going to go tonight, so I'm here for an hour and a half. I just need to cut out at that time, and then you all can.
As long as you keep an eye on it and don't count on me, we're good.
Okay, I'm good. I'll keep an eye on it.
I guarantee you, Steve and I'll find something to talk about.
I bet you will.
You reckon? We might have something we could talk about.
We might come up with something. So who wants to go first? Ladies first, would you like to go? Yeah, and I'll pull up your picture. Are you ready for your picture?
Yeah. I've got one of the ghost stories.
You tell me when, because I just put it in a little slide thing.
Okay. This new book that I have that's in editing called Omnipresent 111 Becadon Drive is about a haunted townhouse building of 10 units that I actually had to live in. The first house I never had to move into, I wouldn't move into, but I was in a position where I was needing to move. After a divorce, I was looking for a place to move very, very quickly, and this place came up that was within my price range, and it was available, and I had to get out of where I was. I had like 3 weeks to get out of where I was, so I didn't get to go in and check it the way that I normally would, where walking in and using my camera and just feeling for things in the, the room to see if there was anything there. But so the lady agreed to meet me with the lease at the house for me to go in and see it for the first time. And I literally walked through in 10 minutes. It looked clean to me. It was in good condition. It did need to have the refrigerator cleaned out and the stove, but they said that they would finish that up, that they were still over the next couple of weeks cleaning up where the people had just basically abandoned the place and moved out. And so when it came time for me to finally move in, I'm moving my stuff in, and I go in and I notice that the bathroom's not clean and that the refrigerator's not cleaned out and the stove is still nasty. And I call up the management company and I said, hey, you told me that this would be move-in ready and it's not. I can't even let my kids use the toilet because you had construction workers in here and the toilet should be clean. It was a 1.5 bath place and both of the bathrooms were nasty. And so they said that they would line me up with their cleaning lady to come and finish the cleaning. So she was supposed to come out one day and she didn't show up. So I called again. I said, look, I'm here. She was supposed to be here while I was, away packing my stuff to come back. I'm going to have to go ahead and start moving my stuff in here that I don't need to put away in the kitchen or the bathroom. But you need to have somebody come and clean this because I can't move in here. We're still sleeping at the other place because I can't use the facilities here and it needs to be cleaned up. So they told me that they would put me directly in touch with the cleaning lady. So I called the cleaning lady's number and I left a message. And on my way with a van load of boxes to that apartment, that townhouse, I get a call from the cleaning lady. And she said, I know that this is going to sound really, really weird, but do not move into that apartment. I'm like, why? And she said, because it's haunted. And my heart just sunk because I thought, not again. How could one person go through this once in a lifetime? And here I am going through it a second time and I'm stuck. I've signed a lease. I'm going to have to see if I can get out of the lease. And I said to her, I said, really? Now, that day earlier, I was in the house putting away shoes and things and hanging them in the closet. In my peripheral vision, I did see a little girl that came and stood into the doorway of the master bedroom. And she was in a white dress with a little pinafore thing, the little boots that button up the side. So like the 1800s, middle 1800s dress and appearance, beautiful brown blonde hair with a bow to the back of her head. And I said to her, I said, hi. And all of a sudden she turns and she looks over her shoulder and she darts away like she's running from something. So I said to the lady on the phone when she told me that it was haunted and do not move in there, I said, well, is it the little girl? And she says, yes, there is a little girl, but that's not the one that I'm warning you about. She said, there's another one that stalks the bathroom. It's a man. He's very, very angry and he mumbles and screams for you to get out. Now, I reflected back again and being there earlier that day, putting away my clothes when I saw the little girl. And I remember I was in the kitchen and I heard mumbling, but because the kitchen window was butt up against a parking area, I just assumed that there were some people talking on their phone or something outside and I ignored it. So now it put two and two together what that was. So it turns out that I ended up having to move in, which helped me to be able to learn a way to effectively barricade and block spirits out of your house when you have a house connected with a house. Because part of the problem with clearing houses when you have apartments or homes that are connected to one another sharing a wall is that the spirits can just go next door while you're clearing the house and then they can come right back after you're done. So I needed to be able to make a force field. And the lady told me, she said, your apartment is haunted and it's the worst, but the one next door to you, number 3, is haunted. And then there's another one that is haunted that she mentioned. And she said, I hate coming over there to clean. And so when I also called the management company, I said, look, I said, this house is haunted. I said, as a matter of fact, I specifically mentioned to the lady when I was signing the lease, because I told her that previously I had owned a haunted house that I never moved into, that if I found that this house was haunted, that I would be able to move. And she just kind of laughed it off. And so they basically told me, well, that's not grounds to break your lease. So I was stuck there for a whole year. So I ended up having to move in. The very first night that I was there, I hear tapping on the nightstand next to my head. My daughter went to go to sleep in her room, and about an hour later, she comes into my room and she said, I can't sleep in my room. There's something fluffing my hair, and there's a little girl that keeps going in and out of my closet. So
Jeez, that's a terrible place to stop you, but I need you to see that comment. Can you read that? Can you see it? It's from Ted, and it's Lynn looks like a kind of hot nun.
Oh, I'm gonna have to.
I wanted to make sure you got to see that.
Oh, that's cute, Ted. I've got a $2 bill for you, honey.
There you go. All right. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I figured that was, interrupt worthy.
Yeah, I've got my headband on because I need to color
wonderful.
the roots of my
hair. Goes
hair.
great with the T-shirt. You're rocking it. I was on there. I was on there today. But I don't want to stop you. I don't want to stop your story. Go ahead, honey.
I need to.
You were at the closet.
So I was covering them up.
Something was going on with the closet.
Right. So my daughter comes in and she lays down with me. Well, lo and behold, I figure, well, when Bill, my partner, gets here this weekend, we'll go ahead and we will clear out the house. I knew what it was. I'm laying there and all of a sudden I feel my nightgown being pulled up and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. So I kind of laid there to see what was going to happen. And then the sheets start to get pulled down and I'm like, oh, F no. So I sit up and I'm like, you do not have permission to touch me. You need to get out of this house right now and leave. And of course it stopped for a little bit, but of course the next night it came back. And then my son ended up moving in and staying in my daughter's room. My daughter ended up staying with me in my room and he was complaining about something fluffing his hair, shaking his bed during the nighttime to wake him up and all sorts of things. But what it turned out to be, and I'm not going to, because I know everybody's got stories, so I'm kind of speeding forward and I have a book written on this. It turned out that after speaking to several of the residents that lived in the building, most of which were single women, every single person in that building was having experiences with this entity going from townhouse to townhouse in their townhouses. One lady even had made mention that she woke up one morning with her underpants down around her ankles. And, that she didn't know how they got there. She was sleeping in bed by herself. So I had gone into one night, it was about 1 o'clock in the morning. My dog was fussing to go out. So they had these French doors that went out to a patio and then a backyard beyond that. And I let my dog out and I noticed that 2 doors down, there's a lady out on her patio and she's mumbling and talking on her phone. And I kind of overhear what she's saying. And she's like, well, my neighbor's out here, so I have to go. And I asked her, I said, are you okay? And she said, would you mind standing here while I go inside and get my purse? I said, are you all right? And she's like, well, no, but if you would just stand here. I said, are you having problems with ghosts? Because of course I just come right out. And she's like, she started to cry and she said, how did you know? She started to tell me about her boyfriend being at work and how something was opening and closing doors and that she could feel it touching her, crawling in bed with her, and that she didn't know what to do. So she called her parents and was leaving to drive 3 hours away to go stay with her parents until her boyfriend came back he was working a distance for a couple of days. So I started to talk to other neighbors, found out that it was happening in their townhouses as well. We even had a meeting in the parking lot one night to talk about it so everybody could exchange their stories. But what it turned out is that there was a ghost. And normally they show up and close, but this one did not. And the thing that is ironic is that I have a picture of him that I took in that lady's house because I went in with her for her to get her purse. And I had gone over another time when she came running over wrapped in a towel with shampoo still in her hair. Can you please come over? It's back. Because I gave them things like some dragon's blood and things to try to clear it away. And so I went over because it was daytime and I took a picture of where I saw this waffling to the air and I caught the naked ghost on my phone. And the thing about it is like I said, most of them show up and close, but ironically, this one was showed up in the nude. And for the picture, the funniest part is the fact that he was actually covering up his Johnson. Here he was crawling in bed with people and I did an outline so that you can look at the other picture and know where to look to see him. You can see him clearly. Like I said, it was during the daytime. I took it with my own camera. I don't know what photoshopping is. So if somebody tries to claim that.
I'm going photoshopping.
Yeah. Or photo.
That sounds great.
Or whatever. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? That's dolled up. I don't know how to do that, but you can clearly see him there. And it is family oriented because he is covering up his Johnson. But the thing that's ironic is with this man going from apartment to apartment, crawling in bed with women. Now all of a sudden he's going to get his picture taken and he wants to be modest. I mean, to me, that it's hilarious that he actually stood there for the picture and covered up his wiener. I'm like, go figure. But this guy was going from townhouse to townhouse. We all had the same complaints of him tapping, of him opening and closing doors. You'd hear him around in the kitchen and the bathroom area. So I had to learn with salt how to make like a force field almost of the walls to protect all of the area so that nothing could cross. And of course the salt and the doorways and things like that. And there weren't really any windows because I was in the middle of two. So I only had a window upstairs at the front bedroom, the kitchen, and at the back. There were none on the sides, but of course those were salted as well. So I had to learn how to address that. But that is the latest ghost story that nobody has heard. There's a lot more detail to it. It goes into each of the stories of the women that had this guy crawling in bed with them at night too. So,
hey, Lulu. Yeah. Said, what did I just walk into? Hey, Lulu. Hey, Lulu, how you doing, sweetheart?
They can do that.
Welcome in, Jack. Yeah. And that's the thing. People ask all the time, Steve, why do ghosts show up with clothes on? Why do they show up without clothes on? Why do they? I think it just depends on the ghost. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I've covered some cases before where there was
it's up to the
ghost trying to get people's attention to save somebody's life. And there's one they talked. It was on an episode of Unsolved Mysteries where a lady and her son had crashed their car off into the ditch.
Yes.
And she'd been there a couple of days. She was killed on impact. The little boy was still alive, still buckled in. And passing motorists saw a naked lady laying on the side of the road. They didn't stop. They thought it was a trap or a carjacking attempt or something. But they let the police know, and sure enough, the car was down off the embankment. You couldn't see it. But it wasn't the lady, because, like I said, she was killed on impact. But they think it was her ghost, and what better way to get people's attention than to show up with no clothes on.
Now, I think I recall that 100%. That's one of my favorite ones. And I think, if I recall correctly, it was some kind of connection, like a sister or something like that was getting these
number. And it
got her out of bed.
The milepost where the car was found was the number that the sister had been dreaming about.
Got her out of bed. They went through. They got an officer. The officer went back. And I can't recall whether or not he saw her or saw a shoe or saw something that made him stop there.
Laying in the road. But he got out and walked.
And found the boy.
Couldn't see it. And the boy was just literally hours from death.
Yeah. And I think she did look, followed her description, but she was totally nude. And she was like in the fetal position, laying just off the side of the road. And to go back to try to find it, it's can't, that's crazy because she died on impact. I remember that, Steve. See, there's an oddity. There's an odd one. Now, I'll tell you what, Steve, you want to tell one of yours? I love the one when I think about, it's funny because when I think back all the conversations we had, and I remember in the first conversation we ever had, I heard about the flying coffin. I heard about the piano one. I heard about just so many different things. It was like we ran the gauntlet that night. And it was funny when I sent the message, I had to just pull out a story, and so many pop up into your head. It's like, boop, 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 boop. It's like, I don't know how you pick. So do you have one you want to pull out of your hat? Just to tease us with.
I was going to read something from.
Please do. Are you ready to do? Are you ready to do that?
I can go ahead and do that.
Give us one of those, and I'll give us
down here.
a couple military ones. We'll go back around again, and watch the clock, sweetheart. Okay, because I'll miss the time.
I don't have any military ones
I'm
in
good.
here,
I got you.
I'll read something short. But people in the chat were talking about Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And
yes.
I grew up just outside of Oak Ridge, across the Melton Hill Lake on the West Knox County side. But my dad worked in Oak Ridge at the National Laboratory. And this was told to me by somebody that lived in that area and just on the other side of the lake from Oak Ridge. It's called the Lake Monster. One day, my friend Scotty and I were out messing around in the woods with our BB guns. We had hiked out in the woods over by the lake. It was starting to get dark, so it would soon be time to go home, as we didn't want to be wandering around in the woods after dark. We found that the quickest way home would be to walk around the shore of the lake rather than cutting back through the woods. It's probably a little farther in distance, but the walking would be on level ground instead of climbing the hills and ridges on the trek through the woods, thus saving us some time. We just rounded a point of land and headed into a small cove that we thought would lead us back to the paved road. The sun was starting to set, but we weren't as worried about it getting dark since we were familiar with the area we were now in. Just as we came up the side of the cove, we heard a splashing in the water. It wasn't unusual for fish to jump out of the lake sometimes, so at first we didn't think too much about it. However, the splashing continued, and when we got around the bend where we could see, we were met with an unusual sight. Out in the water, and about the middle of the cove, something was moving up and down in the water, making a greater and greater commotion. At first I thought it might be a turtle, as snappers weren't uncommon in the area, and some can grow to a pretty large size. As we continued, it became evident that this wasn't a turtle, at least not like any we'd ever seen. We observed the beast's back, or hump, moving briskly up and down in the water, making a fairly large wake around whatever it was. From the part that we could see, however, it would have had to have been the size of a small car, maybe a Volkswagen Beetle. We stood and stared at it for a good 15 minutes, too dumbstruck to do much else. Eventually, the hump submerged with a large splash and left a sizable wake on top of the water and swam away. We hightailed it out of there, made it back to the paved road in record time. We went back on several occasions throughout the rest of the year, now always carrying binoculars and a Polaroid camera. Unfortunately, we never spotted whatever it was again, short of a giant sea turtle, which was unlikely because we were in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. I don't know of anything else to which our monster could be compared. So you never know. Is it something that escaped from the laboratory out there? They did some animal experiments and things out there.
Now that's similar to Plum Island, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that whole Montauk.
Montauk monster.
I'm digging into that right now, and I'm like, oh man, there's so much. Lynn, what do you think? Turtle?
You know, it could have been a snapping turtle, but and those are pretty scary in themselves. But I mean, you just never know in this day and age, and plus with all of the alien activity and the things that they do, dropping things off here to see how they survive. You know what I'm saying? It could. Believe me, I've seen some things, and I believe. If they say it, I believe it. You know, because.
Yep. Here's a question for you. Lynn, did you ever hear any tales as about Mr. Man? Does that make sense to you? It's from Kat. Kat, can you clarify on that one, honey?
You mean the nudie guy?
I think so. I think that's what she's talking about.
Yes. He was the one that was pulling down, even in my room, tapping next to my nightstand. He would tap, 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 right next to my head on my nightstand. Just annoying. And then I'd be laying in bed, and all of a sudden I'd slowly feel the sheets being pulled down and my night shirt being pulled up. And of course I'd grab the sheets and I'd pull them back up.
And he was a ghost that was going in and out. He was going from apartment. See, Steve and I say that all the time. You think, you're going into a hotel. Can you imagine what even a small, like say, 15, 20 room, long, old, 1950s, 60s motel still on the side of the road. You know what I mean? They're just these long, dull looking things. Anyway, can you imagine just the energy in that over the decades of the things it's absorbed? And you think it's going to go from one room to the other and back again, the grounds. And, I don't understand why people think that all ghosts are confined to a small area. Some are, and some are contained.
Anchored.
They anchor themselves.
Yes.
You know what I mean, Steve? You have another way to explain that?
No, this one sounds like a wandering amorous ghost, but I don't think some of them aren't tied to any one particular spot.
Right.
That's why we always say if you're going into a hotel room, cleanse it. Gosh, you think I'd want to go in with luminol and a black light, black salt, black light.
That's right. And in reference to Ron's question, how it works.
I love this. Yep.
If people have people have the opportunity to choose at their time of death whether they want to cross over or not.
Right.
When they choose not to cross over, those are usually the ones that are the ghosts that are haunting places. Mm-hmm. Okay. Your loved ones that have crossed over, they come and go, but it's never invasive. They can come through your dreams. It's always something that's very warm and acceptable. But the ghosts that kind of choose to linger here, because they have not made that transition through the veil over, they do keep their mental illness, their addictions, their cause of death still shows, which is why they look so creepy. And yes, they still have human desires. Plus, they have all of their senses. And a lot of people argue that point, especially when it comes to smell. But it's not smell like with an olfactory nerve. It's a memory recall kind of smell.
Like almost like telepathic smell.
Exactly.
It's almost like a telepathic smell and a memory. And that fits perfectly with the direct voice medium, what we were talking about with them trying to remember how their voice sounded, because they had to send it telepathically and they had to do that kind of memory of it. Yes. Same as people, souls crossing over, say that they can eat, but it's more like a memory of what those strawberries tasted like, or what that, and so many different stories.
Exactly.
One on top of the other, explaining that. It's wonderful. I agree with everything you said.
Right. And, and the thing is, too, is that's why if you have the ability to have second sight and see people, like, for instance, are in a bar, you wouldn't believe how many deceased people are standing around them just trying to get a sniff of that drink, or like even what Cisco has experienced with what she calls jumpers, where they actually like enter into somebody temporarily and their demeanor changes. Yep. So, they do
just so they can taste it again, so they can feel the drug again, so they can get in a bar fight again, because that's what stimulates them, and they're getting energy off of it and having a good time. It depends on their mindset and what they're doing, and what they're interested in, and again, this is a great question, because think of, I say Bob Marley, I think about, no woman, no cry, but think of the Dickens, A Christmas Carol, Marley, because they used a perfect way to describe your connection to earthly things, your connection and the weight and the heaviness of those things. And he did it by describing the ghost carrying chains that he had forged in life by all of those regrets and hatreds and whatever it was that, and he actually was coming back to tell Scrooge, hey, yours was mine 7 years ago. It's like, look at me. Don't be like that, so, and I think a lot of ways that is just the epitome of an earthbound spirit. And we heard that again through conversations with Leslie Flint, direct medium conversations, and every 1,000 million gazillion other stories, so yeah, I agree 100%.
Well, and like Cisco was saying, and I'm not trying to hug this, but in a conversation that Cisco had on the show once before, she was talking about being in some of these places investigating, and how she came across in the pub or the bar some of the mafia or these men that were of that, and how you would offer to cross them over and they would decline to cross over because they were there with their mistresses drinking, and they didn't want to cross over because they would have to face their wives. So when a soul has not crossed over, when they cross over, they don't have their addictions anymore. They don't have the cause of death showing. It's a very beautiful thing, but it's for those that have chosen to stay earthbound.
Hey, Steve, you want to say anything about that? That's pretty. I know you agree with all that, because I've heard it come out of your mouth too.
Yeah, that's speaks the truth there.
Absolutely, it does, and I think and that's the thing about it. Again, we talk about the paranormal. I've been listening to so many people now that are coming into the whole Bigfoot thing, and really coming into it like now, instead of being in it for 30 years, and just seeing how all the information now, and looking at it all different, all the data, all from everywhere, and seeing the arguments and the things, and I don't want to say, well, there are downright arguments. I mean, not just seeing push fights, but real fights. But the thing is more or less the feeling that's there of, my Bigfoot wasn't like this, so therefore your story can't be true. My ghost was not like this, didn't do those things, therefore your evidence isn't as good as mine, or this and that and the thing. And I was watching a documentary the other day too. They were kind of going at it with new eyes, and they were talking about the evidence and the way it's gathered, and why it will never settle with science, because nothing is even if a paranormal investigation group is very scientific and clinical about their going about, categorizing everything and taking all the, just every precaution, it can never set up because it's not a clinical thing. And I said, well, wait a minute. We have had plenty of times, like look at Harry Price and Peter Underwood, so many people, Hans Holzler, and that's just off the top of my head. There's a bazillion of them. Leslie Flint and the way they handled their stuff, I thought that was very scientific, very, but took everything into account. The intent, understanding how important that was, and it making a difference. We've had Jim in here, Jim Wyrick of Keystone Paranormal, said the same thing happens at Hoover House. We've had people in places like Lily Dale. Where's that in? Is that out there by you, Steve? Is it Massachusetts, Lily Dale, or is it?
I'm not sure. I ain't
Minnesota.
Here.
You ain't from around here? Ask your lovely wife. Does she know? Because I think Lily Dale's a real. It's a whole. If you don't know what it's a whole town. It might be even larger. That who knows by now, but it's all people with abilities, mediums, and things like that, psychics and stuff. And you have to pass tests and go through all kinds of different things to be certified that you're one of them. So I just think it's very interesting. That a place like that, even, I know that there's probably infighting and jealousy and things like that amongst, because nobody's perfect, because everybody has moments, but I think that there's probably a situation of a gathering of good intent there too, and so much ability, that there's probably another light portal there and in so many other places. And I think they're really starting to pop up. I really do.
I agree with you. I think that everything, it's going to start to evolve and change. And also, with science, because they can't taste it, touch it, feel it, it doesn't exist. Right. But I can tell you what, if they see one with their own eyeballs, you can't unsee it. So a lot of times they will rationalize it, or they won't mention it because they don't want to be considered cray-cray. And, so they keep it to themselves. But like I said, once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And the spirit realms and the aliens, and I think it was Bigfoot actually going in the water, Steve. These things are coming out. I mean, they're not going to be able to deny it with all of the UFO sightings and all of the abductions and all of the people coming forward that have seen Bigfoot and cryptids and all kinds of things. There's beginning to be a larger population of us than there are of the non-believers.
So true.
I Googled Lily Dale. It's in New York. And it's related to Casadega, which is the spiritualist camp in Florida, where you have to have abilities to live there. And
it's so neat, though.
Yeah,
it's so neat, though. And I'm just imagining that a gathering of that kind of those kind of abilities, and then I'm sure within that group you have a smaller group that kind of gets together, like the groups we're talking about, out of sheer want to help perfect strangers that are in spirit in some form or another, whether it be an earthbound soul, or one that's crossed over, or one that's crossed over and advanced, because there's many levels, there's many frequency levels, and it all depends on, like we said, where you're vibrating at. And that's why we try so hard to explain that, because it's so very hard for the human. We come here with all these things that we have to sort, and we've talked about the line of just that imaginary, imagine that line. It's just a black line, and below that line, name every kind of, put it here in the chat. Name an emotion or feeling or something like that that's a heavy, like regret, jealousy, anger,
Sadness. Yeah.
so many, depression, and what, voluntary or otherwise. It does none of that's all semantics at this point. It's just where it is. Do you think it's a heavy emotion or a light emotion? And then above that line is the higher vibrational things: joy, love, smile. Think of those kind of words and put it there. You go. And think about that, how close to that line. So as it goes down, each one, the heavier ones have more weight and drags you down. It's like the chains on Marley the Ghost, the heavy chains, the links in the chains, and all the things that, I think the heavier ones, Steve, are the ones that you could have done, but you chose to do the wrong thing, like Daniel Brinkley says. You're familiar with that too, Lynn, where all the things he had done in his life. And, he's not advertising right now what he used to be, so I won't tell you, but it would go with today, if you hint. So, the things he did in that capacity are just, it's very hard if you're not familiar with those things to take yourself through the horrors of war, So, and all of the things he had to relive, all of the things that he had to learn, the people that he put down, the people he cheated on, all the different stuff. What stopped him was he could have helped a dog that he hit on the way to a party. And that's the one that broke him. But it took 3 times. 3 times getting hit with lightning. Is he up to 4 yet? Or he's still at 3, right, Lynn?
I think that he has had an additional, when he had his heart operation, he had a bypass surgery.
Some kind of an issue there. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and there was something. That's why he came back hugging people. Remember, you were telling about that.
Yes.
He came back hugging people because what was you tell it? You tell the story.
Well, he said that he's a hugger. Goes to parties, he goes to whatever. He also runs a hospice. Oh gosh, I forget the name. The name escapes me right now, but it's for vets. So no vets will die alone, and he's been doing this for decades now. And it's one of the ways he reaches out. It's great, but anyway, he's a big hugger, and wherever he goes, and he's an author as well. So he's always hugging and hugging and hugging. And somebody said to him, what is this always hugging people? You're such a hugger. And he says, I'm not hugging you. I'm hugging me. When I get over there, I'm going to need all those hugs, because you actually have to experience what you're putting out. And that's another reason to stay above the line as much as possible. Listen, I dip below that line all the time. Sometimes it feels like stuff is pulling on my leg, just, when I'm hanging on the edge of it, just, because it drains you, where the other one fulfills you. And it's the same as when you're a ghost. If what you have, depending on your situation, was it a surprise? Was it you knew you were going to pass? Whatever. You have to add all these variables in there. It changes everything. It's like having a spinning top and you touch it, and that's going to affect it, and it would do a different direction. Remember the little girl I told you about that had an NDA? She was like 4 years old, and she's actually floating and flying with these, I forget what she called them, but let's just say ascended beings that came to help guide her. And as they're going through, they're telling her little things or tickling her or whatever she said, and it made her giggle. And every time she'd giggle, she'd shift to the right or she'd shift to the left. And every time she'd do it, everything would change and get brighter and happier and more light and more things and more different kind of flowers that were just suspended and glittery things and stars. And so every time she just giggled, it raised her vibration enough to shift her. That's incredible, Steve. What do you think?
Yeah, it kind of reminds me, and this is an odd correlation, but the scene in Willy Wonka where Charlie and Grandpa Joe were in that tunnel and they were floating up and they had to burp so that they would descend down and not get chopped up in the fan. It's kind of the same thing in reverse.
I love it. I remember that. But yeah, speaking of Willy Wonka, that movie took a hard left real quick, didn't it? I mean, you're riding along in that thing and all of a sudden his eyes start getting a little crazy and that train in that tunnel starts going. You're like, whoa, where's this movie going? Yeah. I don't think anything will get better than the original one. That's another movie they should leave alone and not touch. Yeah, and not touch. But hey, look, I've got a couple of military, because it is Memorial Day. I pulled a couple of ghost stories, and I thought, I'm going to go over the Army website, since I'm, eons ago was in the Army, and I thought I'd pull up and see if they had any ghost stories. By George, they did, and I thought it was kind of cool. So if you want to, we take turns reading, Steve. If you want to, they love to hear you read. So, and some pictures to go along with it. I just thought it would be fun. So here's just another little odd grab bag thing. If you guys are ready, you cool? This is about 4 minutes, I think. Okay, here we go. Try to keep the music kind of low.
Let me read that one.
Go ahead, honey.
Missouri's Jefferson Barracks are now home to the Army and Air National Guard, but a spooky sentry with a bullet hole through his head allegedly still confronts soldiers in the barracks headquarters. Legend has it he still thinks he is on duty during a munitions raid and believes the living soldiers are his enemies. The soldier was once so scared by the bloody sentry that he left his post and the Army altogether, according to one story.
Wow. Yeah, right? I mean, there's been so many stories about, being in the barracks, being in the cots. I had to sleep in a room once, had 3 empty cots in it. I could swear that I could hear the squeak. There's a distinctive in those Army cot springs, and that there's nobody there, and you wonder, was that somebody that got lost in a battle, Let me see, I can grab the...
You're muted, Cisco. Or am I supposed to be reading?
Oh, shoot. You go ahead. I just messed it up. I read half of it. Muted.
Another older story tells of a Halloween party at the Veterans Hospital and part of the barracks where a Civil War era ghost made an appearance. A man in a strikingly realistic Civil War officer's uniform made an appearance before the party's host. When the host asked him how he liked the party, the man was rude and then disappeared. Later, when the host asked about the guest, no one knew him or anyone who wore that costume to the event. That's creepy. I've heard of that where some of the guys doing their battle recreations, the reenactors, would encounter somebody out there with an appropriate uniform, even the appropriate munitions.
There you go.
And they didn't know who they were, where they came from. I think you told a story about somebody that had a cartridge.
Yeah, three cartridges.
And they had
he's sitting on the Rock Devil's Den.
And they were period perfect and dated back to that era.
Yep, so they sure did. They dated them.
Cartridges.
Here you go. You want that one too, Mr. Stockton? You're doing so good.
That's the one I just read.
Is it really? Doggone it! Did I repeat
read it again?
That's okay. Did I repeat it? I probably did, guys. I was trying to rush this and get it going. Here we go. Man, I'll tell you what. You go back just in our history. I can imagine you guys in the UK. Gosh, how far back can you go for the battles and the craziness? And what always kills me is we didn't change the whole Civil War. They were still doing that whole line up and shoot and drop them, fill in the hole, march forward, fill in the hole, march forward. It's what a crazy way of fighting. I mean, just awful. All right, there you go, honey.
All right.
Is that the same one again?
No, this is a different one. During World War II, a remote village in Switzerland became the site of strange happenings when a British company of soldiers stayed there. Wood, tarps, and valuables began disappearing, which were dismissed until a child went missing. When more children, as well as a private from a British company, disappeared, rumors of a monster spread.
Oof. Have you ever heard of this one? It doesn't end well. Yeah, crazy.
Kind of reminds me of the stuff there at Chickamauga battlefield.
Yeah.
Monster, old green eyes.
Oh, green eyes, sucking the souls out like that thing from not Willy Wonka, but Harry Potter. Harry Potter. You know those things? What are they called, chat? It's awful, right? God bless them all, I'm telling you. Imagine the stories. There we go.
One night, soldiers saw a mysterious figure and chased after it, thinking it was the being that preyed on the village. Though they never caught the figure, the soldiers discovered a cave. Shots were fired from inside the cave, and the soldiers returned fire. Upon pressing further into the cave, soldiers found the body of the British private who had been shot through the heart. He was surrounded by the half-eaten bodies of the children that went missing. That's crazy.
What do you think did it, guys? This is on the Army's official website. You can find it right there.
Sort of Hannibal Lecter-esque there.
I know. And I was like, wow. So that kind of sets us up for my oddity story that I was bringing, because I was thinking about, as far as military goes and the odd stories and the stuff I've been digging into lately, it's been love this. I'm sorry, guys. It's like Disney to me, you know. I've been watching war stuff my whole life. Patton's one of my favorite movies. So there you go. Happy Memorial Day, everybody.
But I love it so. He was talking about war, but that applies to us.
No, yeah,
normal, I think.
Yeah. And I feel like, Lee does it. It's good that it's so awful, or else we would like it too much. It's just it's not that you like the war. It's about the morale, the camaraderie, the brotherhood, you're fighting for something you believe in, standing up, and you have to build yourself up so much. It's hard not to feel that way. It's any warrior's song, really. Whether it's you're putting on the war makeup or whatever. But again, that is on my whole alma mater. I look for, let's see if I can find some. I know there's a ton of ghost stories, but I'm thinking for them to pick some to have on their website, it must be something else, because there's another one, guys, and I'm sure you've heard of it. And Steve, I know you have. But before I bring another one of mine, I wanted to reach out and see if you guys had any more odd things. Like, what's the oddest thing, asking both of y'all of what you've been through, but what you've also heard of that just really stopped you. And I could remember the moment that happened to me was, so many things hit me with Hans Holzler and things like that, because it gets very deep. Gosh, I read just part of a transcript to you guys from ghosts I've met about a murder that was solved by the ghosts, by the people that were involved, talking through Ethel Myers. It's the most incredible thing. And everything matches up. And they went back after the fact and went through documents and talked to curators and historians and found out, yes, that's true. That you'd think that was the most shocking thing. But that wasn't it for me. I remember the moment, and it was when I was reading Amityville Horror. And I got to the part with the priest where he was going home and was so sick, and things were still attacking him and things that were happening to him. And after digging through that story and the things that were true and the things that weren't true, that's one of the things that kind of wound up in the true column, that really panned out after digging through all the fluff and further, and the distraction and the lies. That one. And I can remember taking that book, probably 15 years old, taking that book and slamming it, throwing it across the room, running across the room, picking it up, opening my door, putting it outside the door and shutting it. And I can imagine my aunt and uncle when they got up that morning to go to work, and that book's laying in the hallway outside my bedroom door. You don't need to ask any questions. That's hysterical, but that was my moment. Did you guys ever have that moment? Ladies first.
I grew up in a haunted house, so to me, it was commonplace to see spirits wandering through the house. So it wasn't until my mother took me through a religion change that I became afraid of my gifts, and then everything became scary at that time. But several of the stories everybody's already heard over and over again, like the one where my brother's friend came into the room with his family, and and to say goodbye because they had been killed in an auto accident that day. And we found out, the next day when my brother went to school. So there were several things that were profound that actually stuck with me. I think that's one of the main ones. That's one of the first ones that really brought the subject up in the household about death, because now we were starting to realize that it wasn't so commonplace what we were seeing wandering through our house. And of course, back in the 60s, I was born in 1963. I just had my 61st birthday. And, back then you couldn't talk about stuff like that.
I still got you by a year. Look at us, man. We're still going.
Woo! Hey, we make 60s look good. Woo!
Right.
There you go.
But, and just to say in the chat, I mean, guys, sometimes this stuff gets dark, and I'm going to bring up one that might be a little darker. So, either la la or whatever, but some of this stuff, listen, paranormal gets dark, supernatural gets dark, you're in spiritual warfare, you gotta but I got you. If you want to just sit behind me and on the things, I can be like, my mom used to take me to these movies. It was so funny. I'll never forget going to Billy Jack. That was probably the first time she ever did it. And I'm sitting in that was probably Billy Jack. And right in the middle of that, I'm like 10, and she covers your eyes. You've been waiting to see this damn movie for a month, and she's covering your eyes, and you're trying to pull her hands away so you can see what she doesn't want you to see. That's like it. That's the way it is sometimes, but we know how to get out of the dark exists. And I know people don't like to hear about the dark. I understand that. But the reason the dark got such a rooting into our society, into our system, into our universe, is because the evil convinced us it didn't exist and people weren't this bad, and things that didn't do these things, and ghosts can't hurt you, and there are no things that will stop you and try to manipulate you or jump in you and make you do things, and there's no humans that would do that to you. And listen to me. The Montauk, is that's scary? I know it's horrible to hear about kids being found, but look at all the kids that go missing. What's happening to them? I'm sure nothing's nice. And we can't ignore it, because if you ignore it, it gets a foothold and it gets rooted more. If you bring it out to the sunlight and you destroy it, you start to destroy it, and they've been lying to us for a very long time, and these things exist. And why they won't tell the public or allow the public to know that aliens and portals and stargates and bases and stuff where we're doing these horrible experiments all around, I don't, that's
the only way you can combat darkness. To defeat dark, you've got to shine a light on it.
Right. Finger Lakes and tunnels and people and tall whites and reptiles and grays and this and that. Listen, and that's just those people, or those entities. Human beings are the worst monsters out there. And, the things I hate to tell you guys, but it's the whole reason I'm getting my Rumble channel together, and I'm taking my time to do it right. But the thing is these things exist, and the things that they're doing exist, and hadron colliders and weather manipulation. It's like go get the tin foil, folks. Because it's happening, and the more we say it's not happening, the more they get away with it. The only way that black magic works is if they slide it in. And you don't turn around and go, I see you, knock it off. And your light puts it out. Well, how are we going to get it stopped if we don't bring it to the light? This show is going to bring it to the light.
That's so true. There are 67.
I'm not going out lying to people. Not doing it. Here it comes.
And I'm thankful that this is not the 101 class. This is the advanced class for people that we're not trying to convince these things, are real. You know that they're real, or you wouldn't be here kind of continuing on. But there are 67 patents for weather manipulation, and there are another 125 being
provable,
to be proven.
Researchable, provable,
exactly,
documented.
With that being said, I'm going to be exiting here.
I love you, baby.
Love you too.
Don't push yourself to the last minute. Go and tell us where you are next and how are you doing with your show and everything. Tell us all real quick.
Okay, I'm going to be going on to California Haunts with Charlotte Cosa here at
Yay.
9:30 and from California. Steve, please DM me. I'll be happy to be on your show, whatever you need to do, whatever you need me to do. And
okay, we'll do. Thanks, Lynn.
Yeah, definitely. And just want to say I love everybody. Cisco, thank you as usual for having me on. And next time I'm on is going to be ebook Sunday. So you're all going to want to come
ebook
for that.
Sunday.
Ebook
Ebook Sunday
for Cisco. Yes, ebook
love
Sunday.
Love
so
you.
Definitely come on then, and yeah, we'll see about
Outstanding.
that.
I love you, Lynn, my
Love
sister. You look beautiful. I love the shirt. And you again, that reminds me, that's a great segue into something I want to share with you guys before we go. Good night, sweetheart. Be well, and happy Memorial Day to you, and lots of love and light, baby.
Everybody.
Good night.
Lots of love and light. Thanks for being here. How about that, Steve?
Yeah,
that was nice. Yeah. That's nice. Okay, so let me see. I'm going to share this with you guys. We got something new I want to share with you. I think if I can find it. Okay, so I decided to make you guys a little something because, listen, times are hard. I was just saying it. And yeah, we're going to talk about some dark stuff, and I hate it, especially if kids are involved, ghost kids, any of that. Animals, I can't. It's so hard. So hard. But it's out there. And again, like I said, we got to bring it to the light and squash the darkness. We got to. And knowledge is power, right, Steve?
That's right.
So also knowing you have the tools to beat it off and to beat it, period, is one of the best things. So if you want to show some love to the show and you want to help us out and you want to remind yourself, sorry, I can't see here. I've got a new little thing over there at the T Public. If my mods would drop that, that would be great. I appreciate it. Thanks for dropping Lynn's links too. We'll get that up here. And but it's Sage Against the Machine. Remember, you have the power. Light the sage. Right, Steve? And fight it off. And I'll tell you what, I love the mugs. I'm gonna see if I can get it up here. I don't know if I can. Steve, they still have not allowed us to have dark mode on this thing. It is so bright. It's killer.
I know, it's ridiculous. You can see it glaring off my glasses there.
Me too. It's just so annoying. But I think this turned out really pretty. Look at how cool this turned out.
Every time when I end a live stream, you'll say, "How'd it go?" And then it will pop up a little box.
Thank you.
What can we do better? And I put it in there, dark mode.
Thanks, Kat.
I've done
every time,
3 years
and
now.
still, and we pay for it. It's definitely not free. So, but anyway, I get a little bit. It's got some really cool buttons I like a lot, and I love the pillows, and I love it. Just came out great, and it's a happy little design. There you go. So, yeah, I got it right. Okay, so there you go. T Public. There it is, right there. Thank you so much, kiddo. Appreciate that. And just if you can't do that, hey, no problem. Go out there and hit the like, leave a comment underneath the video or whatever, even negative. What do I care? Just put it up there because it generates. We appreciate it. All of it.
It counts as interaction. Good, bad, indifferent. YouTube doesn't see it.
You're entitled to your opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, I love it when people come in and say, "Hey, Cisco, this, and that," or you said California, meant Carolina. That's fine, no problem. And if you've got new information or whatever, that helps us learn. And again, knowledge is power. I don't mind if I get my mind changed or I get another piece of the puzzle, and that just opens up a whole nother section where I go, "Oh, okay, now it really fits." But we're going to be talking about some crazy stuff. Listen, I'm doing Philadelphia experiment, the Montauk experiment, Fort Hero. Gosh, the darker side of the Montauk boys, MK Ultra, the CIA, the LSD.
Andrew, what's his name?
Say again.
The Project Pegasus. Andrew, I can't remember the guy's name. The attorney that was a part of all that as a child. He'd make a great guest.
Love to. If you can remember later, send me some bits of information. We'll get him, because here's the thing, and Brad Olson as well, because he's also and he's been everywhere, and he's going to Antarctica trying to dig in and all that in a sailboat. I think he went last time. It's hard to explain.
Sadly,
I
he's
certainly
gone,
can't do it.
the guy that wrote about Laurel Canyon, Dave McGowan, we need to go back over some of his stuff. That's a deep, dark.
It's all connected, Steve.
hole.
It's all freaking connected. I mean, I'm watching these stories, and you know the story of the guy who goes out the window and splat on the, on the ground. And this is just a guy who's, a dad of, I don't know how many, it was like 4 or 5, wasn't it? Just a regular, it's like the late 40s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Late 40s. And they're messing around and they're giving LSD to people, and they don't even know they're doing it, using live experiments, and listen, Steve and I have said here many a time, they sprayed LA with, viruses just to see how fast the emergency rooms would, fill up. That was in the 60s.
The subways in New York too. To see
yes. All the different times, again, this is not a dispute. These things happened. And people just, okay. And then the next thing comes and they lose track of it. How much stuff have you heard this week that's happened? How can you remember what you heard last Monday as news where you went, oh, no, because it's coming in waves. It's almost like you're floating in the ocean and the waves keep coming so fast. You don't give a shit about the last one that just slapped you in the face. You're worried about this one, and that's how it keeps going, because there's so many of these things that happen and there's so much documentation and people just want to, oh, it's BS. Oh, it's this. How much have you heard about giants, Steve? Now, listen, I started hearing about giants from elders and people of different tribal and clans, right? All different. I mean, from you name it, from Creek to, Cherokee to the Lenape that I heard from my people that would talk about it, whatever. And just, I've been hearing about it for so long, you just kind of just take along. It's like Bigfoot. You just, skinwalkers or any of that, there's, and that, again, I say that stuff is so deep and so dark. I mean, you got to think, people, you think this stuff scares you. There are places that those things can take you that your prayers cannot be heard. Can you imagine a place so dark and so deep? So when I sit there and I say, you don't mess with things you don't understand. Try not to laugh at things you don't understand, because a lot of times it's a reaction of ours to something that's so outrageous and so outlandish. We just imagine it cannot possibly exist. And I think a way that a human reaction to that is to laugh or to put, make it like it's silly. And I think that's a coping mechanism of some sort. But when you're dealing with the paranormal and supernatural, you just have to understand. Imagine the brightest light and the darkest dark. They both exist at the same time. Right, Steve?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one.
And yeah, it's scary.
Can't exist without the other. Otherwise, it'd just be all gray. But you've got your darkness and you've got your light. And it is a battle, a spiritual battle.
Yep.
One trying to overcome the other, but light will always overcome darkness, just because that's the way it is.
Absolutely. This is the way it is. But again, the way to do that, and if you've got a group that's very powerful, very intelligent, not that everything they do is smart or it's on a different level, and it's in their world of intelligence, their world of knowledge, their bloodline, their history, their belief, right? And they look at things completely different and look at you completely different than you could ever imagine at the complete disconnect from one human to another. And it's an amazing, you've seen it throughout history, depicted in many ways, whether Vikings are jumping, on an island to absolutely, wipe somebody. Look, we could go all through history, but imagine that, now magnify that to complete and utter darkness, right? And then if they're controlling people that just want power and just whatever, it's not even really about the money. It's about heritage, and it's about a status, and it's about a control, and it's about that kind of thing. It's as much as when we were talking about Mothman, Steve, and Professor Leak. I forget what's his face is Klein, I think it was John Klein, and he's talking to him, and he's asking him, what do they want? What what does it want? What do they want? Because he said there's more than one, and it's very ancient and forget about it. You're not, forget about it. And he says, why won't they just tell us what they want? And they said, look, you're smarter than an ant, right? And he says, yes. And he said, have you ever once stopped in your day and thought to explain your intentions and explain yourself and your actions to an ant? And if you start thinking about it like that, and you start going, wow, just having the knowledge that there are things in caves that might take children or might run up a hill, like Steve's story when he talks about the Martin boy, who's the family Martin saw a hairy man type thing run up a hill, right, Steve? With what looked like could have been a boy.
The Key family that saw it.
The Key family. Okay, I'm sorry, I mixed those two up. There was another Martin one.
Yeah, there was 2 Martin families that met there, supposedly coincidentally, but I don't believe a coincidence. But
yeah, it's pretty wild.
The Key family was the one that saw the rugged, hairy-looking man. Going up a holler.
But that's the thing.
They just heard a blood-curdling scream. So who knows?
Yeah, and people just it's hard to hear, but if we don't realize that something is taking kids, whether it's all the same thing or many different things, which I think it is many different things, we can't stop it. If we just keep saying it's too horrible to think about or talk about, and then you have to figure, well, who's taking them? Why are they taking them? What are they doing? How do we stop it? Because I'll tell you something, folks, this, couple hundred years of, turning the other cheek and not paying attention to it and just saying that's too awful to talk about hasn't been working. So I'm going to try this, and here's another thing that keeps getting slapped down. Well, I'll save that one for after this, but this one's kind of fun, and it's not the best recording. It's not fancy or anything, but I wanted to play it and give us a chance to go get some hot water on our tea. It's kind of short. It's only 6 minutes, but it's one of Steve and myself, our favorite. And when you talk about a ghost story and oddities, like the show tonight, talk about just odd things, this is one of the oddest ghost stories from a man that is just all man. And I mean, like they used to mean that back in the day. Just, he's man's man. He's tough.
What's coming up?
He's not playing. He doesn't BS. He doesn't want to be there. He doesn't want to tell you, because he's like, and he even says when he's talking about it, he's very Greek, and he's very almost like, Greek mafia kind of, and played a cop I don't know how long we played Kojak, but it's one of the best ghost stories I've ever heard. And there's so much in here. He rode in a ghost car. He got the ghost got out of his ghost car and helped him push his car to get it started. I guess he's popping the clutch, right?
And the ghost gave him some money too.
Yeah, bought the gas, gave him $1, whatever it was back in the day. Told him a little story, gave him some prophecy about a baseball player that was going to die, or short fielder or something, wasn't he? A famous baseball dude.
And then in the part 2 of it, gave him something about the Kennedy assassination. At
the time of the Kennedy assassination, and amongst witnesses on the golf course. So I can go get some hot water. Let Steve and I share with you the Telly Savalas ghost story.
Hot water.
Go right ahead, honey. That's funny. Here we go, guys. I think. Here we go.
Every moment in time creates questions the human mind cannot answer. Out of reach, past all we can see, hear, and touch, beyond all we understand, lies the extraordinary.
We listen to bizarre and supernatural stories told by friends and strangers, maybe with a little grain of salt. But now and then, someone so prominent we can't ignore comes forward, as in this story. It happened on Long Island, New York, to a very famous man.
Now, what I'm about to tell you is true if you want to hear it.
I do want to hear it.
You do want to hear it, then I'll tell you. I was never superstitious.
I'll give you a ride
But then something happened in my life which scared the hell out of me. And for something like that to happen to me is something that I can't understand to this day. God knows how many years ago. Let me think now. 58, 59. It's a lot of years ago. Now, I just left off a date. Beautiful young girl since left us. And it's about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm going home to Long Island after dropping her off. And as would happen, I ran out of gas. And I go into this White Castle restaurant. I says, is there a gas station open? He says, yeah. He says, you walk through the woods there. He says, get on the Grand Central Parkway, take it to the Cross Island Parkway. He says, and the gas station there open all night. Okay. So I am, start walking through the woods, a wooded area, not the woods, going up, and as I'm doing that, I hear a voice say,
I'll give you a ride.
I turn around, and there's this guy in the Cadillac. And I didn't hear the Cadillac.
You hear the voice, and what do you see?
I see a guy in a white suit, and I hear an effeminate voice. He say, I'll give you a lift. I said, that's very nice. I said, I'm going to a gas station. We get to the gas station, talking very nice. And I'm fumbling around in my pockets. And he says, I'll lend you $1. Well, I didn't ask him for money. And the truth is, I was broke. And I said, well, look, I says, you know, I've worked for the State Department, and, well, anyway, give me your name and address, all right? Allow me to mail it to you, because I'm very embarrassed. Anyway, I go there, I get a can, pay for the gas. And we start driving back to my car to put the gas in the car, and I thought that was very nice of him. And then of the clear blue sky, he says, I know, I'm not going to mention the name, I know so-and-so. And it's a baseball player. We weren't talking baseball. Oh, I said, who's he? He says, well, he's a
Utility infielder for the Boston Red Sox.
Oh, it's so bizarre that he would say it in the spookiest voice I ever heard. He kept driving, get to my car, put the gasoline in. He pushes me to get it started. My car starts. I thank him very much. All in all, it's a very lovely experience to meet someone to help you out like that. No incident whatsoever. Go home, go to work in the morning, get out in the afternoon, this headline in the then Journal American. So-and-so dead. The guy he mentioned in that very spooky voice, age 20-some-odd, young ball player, under very mysterious circumstances. Autopsy and all that stuff. I said, God, what a frightening coincidence. I go home and I says, hey, Ma, isn't that funny? My mother, I think, was part witch. I explained it to her. She says, well, yeah, Telly, strange things that do happen. I said, but. And then I remembered that he gave me a piece of paper for me to send $1 to. I look at it, and there besides the address is a telephone number. Okay. Pick it up and I call the number. Jimmy's Bar. Oh, I said, well, can I speak to Mr. Cullen, please? Oh, Mr. Cullen, just a minute. Woman gets on the phone.
Who's calling?
Hi, may I speak to Mr. Cullen, please?
He's not here.
Well, when do you expect him?
Who is this?
I says, well, I was with Mr. Cullen last night, and he gave me this telephone number, and he said I could reach him here. She says,
Look, you son of a bitch, I don't know what you're talking about. You're talking about my husband, and he's been dead for 2 years.
Anyway, I wouldn't let it go. I did get in touch with the woman again. I did meet her in New York. She came down from Boston. Because, you know, this is a little too much. The clothes I described were the clothes he was buried in. The piece of paper that he gave me signed James Cullen. She brought a letter that he wrote her when he was in the Army. It had Jimmy on that. Outside of that, the signature is identical. There was only one thing that was different. I said he had a high voice, She said, oh, no, 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 she said. Had a deep voice like yours. Oh. Then it meant he killed himself. This way, right through the voice. Box, whatever. Anyway, this story happened to a guy like me, and as I say, it's been haunting me now close to 40 years.
Telly told us, by the way, that he'd always been a cynic about the supernatural. Until that night. It was at this point that Telly ended his story. But a little while later, and after a little prompting, he gave a glimpse of just how powerfully the incident had affected him. Years later, on November the 22nd, 1963, he was playing golf with two friends when the same man with the same eerie voice reappeared in his life.
I'm playing golf right here in California. And I think it's the 7th hole, or the 6th hole, at El Caballero. I think it's a par 3. And as we're shooting, I'm playing with a famous personality here called Dennis James, and a guy, Merrill Heater, who's the nephew of Gabriel Heater, a commentator in this country. And as we approach the tee, from far away I hear this guy on top of a hill saying, Telly, and I turn around. I started shaking because the voice was somehow familiar.
It was the voice of that man dressed in white, that long ago night on Long Island.
He said, did you hear what happened in Dallas? I said, what? Then I asked Dennis, did you hear that? Yeah. I said, what did he say? I don't know. And now I'm shaking. We played the 7th hole, played the 8th hole, played the 9th hole. We go inside to get something to eat. We're sitting down. Television is on. I order whatever the hell I ordered. Then Walter Cronkite breaks in. This president has just been shot in Dallas, Texas. Oh, God. That's how I was.
Same voice you heard in that car that night.
Yeah.
A man dressed in white.
And an hour and a half before the bulletin broke on CBS. At time they shot him. That's only half the story. I'm not going to tell you the rest. It doesn't end there. I wish the hell it would. But as I say, to happen to somebody like me is, I don't comprehend. Because if 2 don't make 4, 2 and 2, it startles me.
I still want to know what the part is that he didn't tell, and if that's out there in a book somewhere or something.
Gets me every time. I've searched and searched.
Yeah, me too.
Man, I've dug and dug and dug. Man, I cannot find out what. And I know he must talk. I even looked to see if his brother had a biography, because you figured he'd write a book, You know what I mean?
George, I think that's the thing. Is he still alive? Maybe.
Dude, I don't know. I don't know. If he's not, he's probably hanging off a ladder edge of a cliff by now. Anyway, we just talked about him. Yeah, I hear Yoko selling. What is she selling that apartment for? Like $86 million or some shit. Can you imagine?
Oh,
I don't know. That's probably an exaggeration.
She
Don't
needs
quote me.
some money. She's destitute.
I just don't even know.
George died October 2nd, 1985. So
does he have a book?
Yeah.
Because I bet if it's in anywhere, I bet it's in his. Because did he pass after Telly? It was after Telly, wasn't it? That was sad. I just people passing, and hearing them, go. It's terrible. I think one of the saddest things I ever watched is if I watch like, what's the name? What's that channel? TMC. All the old movies, and at the end of the year, they'll show little clips of all the people that have passed the year before. It's sad. It's horrible because or you watch some of these old movies
Telly passed afterwards. George in 1980 something, and Telly January 22nd, 1994.
I was just wondering if possibly, after, if it was the other way around, that he would like, okay, he's gone, I can tell a story now. So it'd be worth reading his whole biography to see if it's in there. But I've not ever been able to find it on any browser, in any place, or any book, like Marilyn. Like Marilyn, I have unpeeled data on her, and from the weirdest places over the decades in people's biographies and things like that. I had a telephone call with such and such, and then you find out from somebody way over here out of left field, they've got the same bit of information. That's one of the things I was always back and forth with Mark Shaw about. He'd say nobody's ever heard the tapes, and I was like, dude, I've heard some of them.
Now Telly does have a daughter.
I can't play them for you, but I've heard some of them.
He does have a daughter that's still alive, 37, and
does he?
And has a singing career. So
okay. Well, maybe it's in a song she wrote.
See if she ever heard what her.
That's how deep I'll dig, folks. For you, yeah. I will go and look at. Oh gosh, I got flies. Get out of here! Ever since Amityville, I've hated the things. Nasty. Get out! Out! You're not allowed. I'll light sage. I swear, sage against the machine. So, but where it's in the middle of the night in Jersey Shore, in a thunderstorm. Where's the flies coming from? And all the doors shut. Better get out of here, Satan's little helper.
Were you a fan of that show, Cisco?
Which one, honey? Kolchak? Absolutely.
No, Jersey Shore.
Oh no, I never watched an episode of it. Those people weren't from Jersey; they were from New York. Those were they were Benny's, honey.
The situation,
and they were paid to act that way.
He was at a bookstore here in New England a couple of weeks ago, and they was broke records. I can't imagine that him writing a book. It must have been ghostwritten, but.
Who? The Situation?
Yeah, Mike. The Situation. The Sitch.
Stupidest shit you ever heard.
He was on one of those celebrity
roads. He's like Pork Chop and Yo Daddy and all these, Little Wayne and Little George and golly, what happened? I remember when, I feel like that old cuss sitting on the porch. What happened to, what happened? What happened? I can remember, my son went, well, actually both of them went to Asbury Park Boardwalk last night, Memorial Weekend. This is the crap I used to do at this age, and it's just a sea of people, and it's stormy and it's foggy, but it's Memorial. It's on the boardwalk and the lights and, $20 cotton candy and that kind of shit, $25 to get in the door at any bar. And they may not even have anybody playing. I remember when I came 10 years ago, I walked into one, they said $15 cover. And I said, who the hell's playing Springsteen? And they said, nobody. I'm like, for what? What?
Well, cover charge and a 2-drink minimum, and the drink is watered down and sets you back
for
about
what?
$15. Yeah.
I walked right across the boardwalk.
And went, I couldn't tell you I've never been in a bar.
Oh my God. It's nuts. It's nuts. But this is all, it's all part of the game, folks. It's all part of the MK Ultra. And again, I'm digging deep into that. And, my nephew, the cat's been out of the bag for years on that. I don't know why people talk about it like it's a secret. But it's Conflict Radio. And my nephew, Mike. Hey, Mike, if you're out there listening. It's a great show. Always has. Very goes much deeper into subjects. Aliens and interdimensionals, and he goes in places his mind that I'm just learning to travel. I can dip it in in quantum physics and a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but after a while it's like, ooh, a ghost. That's me. It's just like I'm a dog looking at a squirrel. He says, a ghost story, what? Or something crazy like that. And I love, you'll get my attention when I start uncovering a conspiracy and, and things that I've been looking at for decades start snapping into place. I get very excited about that. And I want to bring it to you guys, So there's one that I thought was perfect for tonight. Now, it's not for the squeamish, and I don't want you to yell at me in the chat. I'm going to tell you now. If you don't want to hear it, I love you. Good night. But, or just cover your ears or sing a song or tap dance or whatever, do dishes, make a sandwich. Don't get upset, but this is real life. And one of the number one things I hate is that when anybody goes through some kind of trauma and then comes back and you've got time after, witness statements and just so much stuff and documents and going back and say, oh, conspiracy theory. All right. Cisco will say it again. I wish I had a dry erase board with all the, with the Post-it notes and the red yarn and the whole thing. Listen, they lie to us, folks. They lie to us. They'll change words. They'll take something that was good and make it bad just to mess with your head. And it's stuff that's been done to us forever. Listen, this goes all the way back. There was a guy, I forget his name, Bernays or something like that. Goes all the way back, 20s, late 20s. The dairy and meat company was losing money. This guy says, hey, he comes back after, young and up and coming dude comes up and says, I have an idea. Let me have it. I'll see if I can, get people to buy more and give me a shot. And they said, sure. The dude comes up with, I'm going to go ahead and interview 2,000, 3,000 doctors. I'm going to make sure I get 1,000 of them to agree with me. And he did. And the question was, is it better for Americans to eat a hearty breakfast or a light breakfast? And at the time, most Americans would eat bread and cheese or do this and out the door. There was no ritual like coffee and tea, things like this. It just didn't do it. Wasn't as popular as one might think, because of the difference in the classes and the living conditions of those classes and everything like that. It was very diverse. So this dude interviews these doctors. Of course, I'm paraphrasing all of this. And made sure he got 1,000 out of all the ones he interviewed to say, yes, a hearty breakfast is good. And he said, well, what would you consider a hearty breakfast? Bacon and eggs, pancakes. Some juice. And from then on, after this guy got done with his putting up signs, dropping pamphlets, getting on the radio, 1,000 out of 1,000 doctors recommend. It changed everything forever, because now you think about breakfast, most people would think in this culture, bacon and eggs, pancakes. It's just a visual, even if that's not what you have. If you're having oatmeal, you're having shredded wheat, if you're having avocado toast, whatever. It's still the American breakfast, what you would think. In an IHOP, you think breakfast, that's what you would expect to see. And he did that. When he was done doing that, he was so good at it, the tobacco company went to him, I think it was Parliament, and they said, can you help us with sales? Yeah. This dude starts a parade, hires a bunch of women, dresses them up in the fashion, buys them a couple hats, and everybody got a pack of cigarettes. And the way he films it in a parade, and the way he markets this is display on screen on these newsreels in between these movie tone news things. He puts up and said, big parade downtown. Women have had enough. They're coming out of the closets and out of the dark corners where men can smoke in public. They're getting their rights today. They've had enough, and they're going to go downtown and smoke. No more hiding in the shadows for women. It's, kind of early women's lib. It took off like a bullet. Not one of them wasn't hired by this guy. And he played it right, propaganda. Well, that just happened to bump up into when the war got started. And guess who hired him next? They had a big old SS, and it wasn't Sylvester Stallone. Propaganda, folks. Propaganda. And they're still doing it today. All of that's true. Go research it for yourself. Come back and tell me I'm wrong. I love it. Bring it on. But it's true. So this is also, I believe, very true. And I'll tell you why. I've heard a lot of inside stuff on this, and I can't tell you about that. I know that sounds creepy to say inside information, but again, there's little dribs and drabbles. Listen, you're sitting around with a bunch of guys, and you're drinking some beer, playing little cards, whatever. Things are spoken about. You dig? So I brought to you tonight because it's Memorial Weekend, and because we're bringing odd stuff, I went in hard with this one, the Kandahar Giant, Steve. Are you ready?
Yep.
It's like it just gives you tingles, doesn't it? Just to think about it. We're we're never going to cure from this.
No.
I got them too, man. Did y'all get it? I was just like, oh man. And a breakfast. I wish I had breakfast right now while we watch this, but I put a little something together for you. And I figured, look, I could do a lot of things. But before we do that, I want to give homage to, there's a podcast, and this is just a cool podcast. And it just shows you how a guy is sit in front of a camera, tell a story, tell it well, Steve, and do well by just being an honest person and telling the facts as best you can, put them together in a story, and be honest about it, and be light and breezy and tell a good story. Storytelling goes way back to the beginning of time when people could grunt, and boo, you tell a story with their hands or whatever. It goes way back.
Imagine cavemen sitting in a cave around a fire, and one guy's up there going, talking about some kind of
and kind of like a mixture of charades and So anyhow, goes way back. So this is crazy, and I believe it. I've been hearing about giants. I'm sitting around circles, with people of leaning more towards native. They might not be card carrying and in a clan, or they may very well be. They might very well be high up. I've sat around them too. But you hear things around a fire, right, Steve? Something about a campfire, man.
So something about
he had a little beard.
Brings the stories up.
Well, something to that. A lot of stuff comes out. Stories come out. So I believe this story, and this is one of the craziest stories you have ever heard. And I have to give homage to, there's a couple of people that started this, brought it out on Reddit, and these people that had signed NDEs whose career was on on the line, who could lose everything, pensions and retirement and military and jobs, just all kind of things. Just imagine being in that situation. It's easy to say, hey, come out and tell it. The public deserves to know. Well, I do believe the public does deserve to know. But thing is, it's like this other stuff I bring out where it's so hard to believe it exists because you've been told that it doesn't. It's been hidden from you. I heard decades ago that under a certain famous museum in the basement, there are skeletons of giants. Yep. That there are. Did they just find a ring, Steve? Did you hear it was like in the past 2 weeks? A big, huge ring that they found in Peru, a silver, beautiful ring. Yeah. I wish I could find it. Maybe if I look it up. Yeah. But it's absolutely amazing that people don't believe that things are possible, or that things could be existing in the woods, or, that every Dogman sighting is a lie. Like and then they break it up, from Dogman and Rougarou to Wolfman, and we get those confused, and then they throw skinwalkers in there on top of it, which is a completely different thing. And it's just that everything gets so jumbled up, mixed up, that we don't know what to think, But here's the thing. If you look in your conscious mind and you just think, take everything else out and just take the facts as they come. We have been hearing about the bones of giants for years. We have been hearing about giants for years. Right? Because it's biblical. Okay? David, Goliath, so many things, Nephilim. So even not bringing all that in there and just wondering whether or not there was ever something that large, that primal, that still existed, it's almost the same as saying, could something be living in the woods like Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yeti, whatever word you want to say that describes them, because there's a million of them. And then we argue about whether, one tribe calls it this and the other. Listen, it's all made up, and it's from the vantage point of the tribe or the person or the heritage and the climate, geography. You know what I mean? And the culture. It's all the same, even though there's separate species. It's like saying dogs, from wolf, natural wolf, the closest untouched, unscrewed around with DNA of a wolf, and a Chihuahua, or a hybrid teacup Chihuahua. That's so far from the beginning and so mixed around that it's changed. Well, what do you think's happened to Bigfoot? And I personally believe, just like I wrote in Cabin 22, that I believe that there's more than one type, as far as one that keeps coming and going, one that might stay here, things that can't materialize for very long in this world. They're non-physical, all of it. It's like JFK, right, Steve? It's like all of it's true. Pretty much all of it's true, except for the out and out lies that's thrown in. The ones that they promote and they try to get you to believe. And after a while, they've said it so much that you believe. And that's actually propaganda 101. Is it, Steve? It's crazy. Yeah. I believe this. What do you think? I'm going to let some of these guys tell you themselves. But I have to give homage again, like I said, to Mr. Ballin, the podcast, because he really took the guy from Reddit, and I credit him here, and brought it forward and made it go viral. So here's just a titch from him, and it's kind of fun. Yeah, here he is. All right. Is that right? Did I get it? Oh, here we go.
Send them out to find this missing unit. So
let me start it again. Right about here.
And it goes right through one of his teammates. In 2002, an Army infantry unit just vanished. They were on patrol in the Kandahar mountain range in Afghanistan. The Army decides that in order to find them, because this is obviously a really big deal, they would get their most elite unit. So the Army Green Berets, that's their very elite special forces. They would send them out to find this missing unit. So they leave via helicopters and they fly out to the Kandahar mountain range, so 4 kilometers about from where they believed was this infantry unit's last known location. They knew that they were in enemy territory, and at any time they could get into a gunfight, they could be ambushed. At some point they noticed a little bit farther ahead that there was this distinct pathway leading up the mountain and kind of around the corner. And they decided, let's just go up there. And so the team starts making their way up this goat trail. And as soon as they start making their way up, they start noticing that there are little pieces of American military equipment on the ground. There are pieces of radios, like whip antennas and housing of the actual radio itself. They found military style backpacks as well. And they started finding pieces of uniform that belonged to the missing infantry unit. They knew based on the patches that were on these uniforms. So as they're walking up this trail of broken equipment and uniforms, they start seeing some bone on the ground. They didn't know if it was human bone or what. They start seeing broken bones scattered on their way up to this kind of plateau. And so now the special forces team, I mean, they're incredibly well trained. And so I would imagine that when they saw this, what they were thinking is this was an ambush. This infantry unit was ambushed, and we're probably coming up on the ambush site. And so they're, taking defensive positions, and they're moving slowly and very tactically up this mountain, and they're keeping their weapons pointed at the leading edge on their way up to the top of this mountain. They get to this plateau. It's like a flat section of the mountain, right? It's like a steep mountain, and there's like this little like shelf almost. And there's more equipment scattered and more bones scattered across it. And there's all these cave entrances right in front of them. It's as if they were intentionally placed so that they fed out onto this shelf. And so they start moving towards the mouth of the caves. And they realize, without even getting very close, that even though the mouth of these caves are pretty large and everybody could go into the cave, there is a steep drop off. Like you'd walk in and then it just goes straight down. And someone kind of peered over the edge and couldn't see how far it went down. And they decided that it was just too dangerous to go in there because clearly something happened here where American lives were lost, based on the tattered uniforms and equipment. And so let's just pull back and take up defensive positions looking at the entrance to all of these cave entrances. And so as leadership goes down kind of out of the fatal funnels, if you will, outside of these caves, Mr. K, who's the guy who's told us this whole story, he said he's looking at one of the entrances to the caves and he sees a flash of movement inside of the cave. And he looks.
Okay. So that is Mr. Ballin. And let me tell you a little bit about, ladies and gentlemen, on Memorial Day, that is a Navy SEAL. And he has got a great podcast that is a storyteller. And that's why he's got a great podcast, and he's fantastic. And he brought this forth, and as you can see, and that goes on. And if, mods, if you would be so kind, somebody go grab Mr. Ballen's YouTube channel and please share it here, because he tells this story fantastic. He's, like I said, the one that kind of made it go viral. I think there's like 7.5 million views on that video alone on just YouTube. And since then, you heard Mr. Ballen there, and how he got his name is really kind of funny. He used to have to put out, the military and stuff like that. He got used to putting all caps. I can't remember what the first thing was. It was like B. Allen is how it came out. And everybody thought he would get, students would send him emails and stuff like that and call him Mr. Ballen. So it just kind of stuck. And when he had to come up with the name for the YouTube, he didn't really realize what he was doing. And he just picked that up. And now he's got this fantastic channel. So go over there and check out some of the stuff he's got. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Lulu. Thank you, guys. My mods are the best. I love you, mods. Thank you, guys. Love you too, gatekeepers. So this story is absolutely off the chain. And it, again, it's PG-13 at the very least. So you are forewarned. There's my disclaimer. Hey, Jay, how you doing? Yeah, exactly, Jay. He is absolutely, let's get that up here. He is absolutely legit. Yeah, I think so. And he's got, like I said, he gets in great conversations. I've seen him on other stuff. He's Cisco approved. But also in this story, we're talking about somebody that's near, a group that's near and dear to my heart, the Green Berets. And they're the ones that went in the special forces that they're talking about. And you heard him mention Mr. K. Well, I have that for you. I have some excerpts here. Hate that word. From a terrific documentary that L.A. Marzulli did. And it's a little bit of it, but I think you're going to get the first man you hear, Mr. K. You're going to get two others, and each one was in a different phase of this. And this is what I mean. They don't even know each other, and they were in on this. But it's so compartmentalized. You see what I mean? And then they come through and the stories fit. This happened to me, bartending. Some people came in on TDY and we're talking about something. I'm like, dude, I was part of that. This happens. It's so weird, serendipity of it all. But anyway, I'll shut up and let's play it. This is good, Steve.
You were in Afghanistan in 2002, and you were called into a very remote section of Afghanistan because a patrol had basically gone missing.
Exactly.
Okay, and there's no villages around
nothing
for miles.
Right.
So very remote.
Yeah, very remote. So we flew in. To about 4 kilometers. We're hiking through the same area where they were supposed to make one of their checkpoints, one of their rally points. And before we left, there was all kinds of what happened with the ambush, but that was even odd because at point of ambush, you'd call for maybe close air support, something, okay? There was no calls made, just off the grid. So we're coming down a mountainside, and it was a nice path, a goat path. As we bent around this corner, you could see this opening of the cave. There's a cave. were coming around. And then I see there's a lot of rocks, which is another oddity, and then bone matter. When I'm not close enough to identify what kind of bones, but I did see something I knew was a piece of our communications equipment. So instantly we're thinking ambush, maybe animal, could be anything. And there was enough room in front of this cave, but it had a sheer drop off. But there was enough room that we actually got into a decent dispersal in case of ambush.
You see something coming out of the cave, and it's moving with a speed and agility that catches you off guard. Everybody.
And he comes out. It was a man at least 12 to 15 feet in height. This is a monster. Red beard, then his hair was longish, past the shoulder, a scarlet red, and Dan runs at him and starts shooting, which broke all of us into the reality. Because it was
so
surreal.
Now your training is kicking in.
Oh yeah,
okay.
Muscle memory, complete muscle memory. While Dan is moving at him, another bro of mine's laying down fire, and I start firing. He skewers Dan. He's now got him on this pike. It went through him. He's still got him, and he's coming after more. We all just clicked in. I don't know what it was, but I remember we're all like, shoot him in the face, shoot him in the face. And our weapons components were in force. We had 308s, and we had Barrett 50s. This is sounding longer than it took. We're talking 30 seconds. And he's taking multiple hits, and is still moving. Dan was dead. Okay? And why is a good man, probably one of the best men I know, now dead. Before I'd left, they were already starting what they call a 9-line, which is a medevac request. They're sending out a medevac request, then all of a sudden it's not a medevac request. All of a sudden we had a helicopter show up because, like I told you, it was a large precipice and a sheer drop. So the helicopter just came up from the drop. They had dropped netting, which is like cargo netting. It's like squares. We were told we had to bundle him up. And we get another bigger helicopter, but it's almost like a Jolly Green Giant used to look back in the day that could get, through this area. Because the mountains, you gotta remember, Chinooks could only go in certain places because they had enough lift. Mm-hmm. And so we got him on there. The thing was too big, we couldn't move it. It smelled worse than a skunk. A corpse that's been around for a while.
Really foul.
Oh, it was like a combination because of the, how do you put that, the persistence of a skunk smell, but once the helicopter came in, dropped its little hook, and off he goes. The communication was sent out that we had a very large possible human creature. Of course we're upset. That's a given, okay? We lost a very good guy. But add to that, you're discussing something that even in our after action report, they're saying rewrite it. And we had to rewrite it the way they wanted.
How many fingers?
Six toes.
Six toes.
And the nails were weird because if you see somebody that ever has, I don't know what it's called, but it's
like a fungus on
the nails, how they get pointy and they're like gnarly. That's what they look like.
I'm going to show you an artifact. It's a bronze artifact. We had it tested. It's about almost 98% copper, pure copper, but it's bronze. Does this look familiar?
I can confirm it was probably about a 10-foot pole connecting it, lashed, split pole like I guess they would have done back in the old days.
Was it about this long?
Oh, easily.
This was found in the wilds of Michigan. We have come to call it the Nephilim lance. It is definitely not a sword. No. It's a pike, it's a lance. And what, you put a staff on this thing, good luck trying to wield it. And what's interesting is the weight of this lance ties into the biblical prophetic narrative, talks about the weight of the spearhead was 300 shekels, talking about one of the giants. I think it was Ishbi Benob. The giant spearhead was 300 shekels. When you convert that to pounds, that's 8.5 pounds. That's what this is. Why? And people have a right to know about this stuff. I mean, if there are 15-footers or 18-footers roaming the planet, and our military has brought them down, I mean, we have a right as American citizens. I mean, this isn't classified military stuff. This is something that we need to know, and it points back to the biblical prophetic narrative. What are your thoughts on that?
I think here's my personal opinion. My personal opinion is if it points that the Bible is accurate, they don't want it. If it goes against Darwinian evolution, it's not to be spoken of.
So you're out in the boonies running around looking for high-value targets?
Correct. Okay. And we're doing those operations, and as we're getting into firefights, we're getting into different scrimmages, you want to put it that way, we would come back to the base and we started hearing this rumor about a unit that killed this, what they started calling this really tall person. At first I didn't think anything of it, and then come to find out that the person that they killed actually was 3 times the size of a man, had extra digits on their hand and digits on their feet, and had red hair, and a special unit had come in and wanted this target. Well, we'd heard that they had killed this thing inside a cave, or the mouth of a cave, and it was common knowledge among the military to hear this.
Now when you say common knowledge, what do you mean? I mean, how does that work?
Years later, to come to find out, when I had returned from Afghanistan and had met other military members that had not been there in the operations with me, if you would bring up the giant of Kandahar, they knew about it. When you first hear it, you're thinking like, this has got to be a joke, this has got to be a hoax. But then after things go down a certain way and you keep hearing it, you start to realize it's not a joke. They kept telling us to keep our weapons high, which means normally it's 2 to the chest, 1 to the head, but they kept telling us to put it towards a man's head and put it higher. So we would question, why do they want us to shoot higher than a man's head?
That's bizarre.
It is.
Our contact said 2002 is when they shot this 15-footer or taller, and you're now in this, you know, in the service around 2005. This word has gotten out, and what I find interesting here too is that if you're going to create a hoax, I get that, but you got details: 6 fingers, red hair, double rows of teeth, 6 digits on the toes, and of course that brings it right back into what we hear about in the biblical prophetic narrative, specifically the Nephilim. Your thoughts?
I agree. I would tell you that when I was doing my time in the service, and the stuff I saw, some of it I couldn't explain, like lights in the sky during firefights, like orbs, or lights that would be the size of a softball that looked that size looking up in the sky but making weird noises. And even going to Iraq myself and being near Haditha Dam and seeing the prisoners underneath the dam, and the prisoners would scream and there'd be this awful feeling underneath the dam, and then later finding out in the Bible that an angel's locked underneath there, where it talks about.
And this Haditha Dam is the Euphrates.
Is Euphrates,
and there's an angel supposedly locked underneath the Euphrates,
correct,
which is released in the book of Revelation.
Correct.
That's bizarre. So you're actually at this site, and soldiers are being locked, imprisoned underneath the Haditha Dam.
Correct.
And they're freaking out.
They're freaking out. They said they could feel it. In fact, the people who would guard them they would draw straws to see who would actually take them.
No one wanted to go down.
Nobody wants to go down. Going back to Afghanistan, we would hear these things. We would hear the locals talk about rumors of these giants.
What would the locals say? How would they talk about it?
They say that they lived in the caves and they would eat people, and
they were cannibals.
They were cannibals, and we, at the time, chalked it up to our United States as Bigfoot. We realized that every culture had some kind of folklore, but to actually all of a sudden hear that a military unit had killed something.
What do you think, Steve? Pretty crazy, huh?
Yeah, quite the story.
I don't know, man. I tend to believe it. I mean, who am I?
But why would they hide it? Why would they cover that up?
They've been covering stuff up since the beginning of time.
They probably want to figure out how to make our own people like that next super soldier.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to make that so loud. I also, I don't know. I can't explain why they do it. Why?
So, anytime there's a discovery, how can we militarize this? How can we use this in battle?
Every time.
The
minute I heard Dogmen doing some of the things that they're doing, it's a little extra. Like they're standing there, and it's like they know your intent, and you've got some that are acting like that, and then reports of others that are just acting like wilding. Just savage, just would look like the attack on the Land Between the Lakes, where supposedly 2 of them went in there and just ripped a whole family of 5 apart. An amazing story, and it's got all kind of legend and twists and turns. And
Dogman is supposedly where they've tried to, in government laboratories, secret laboratories, black budget stuff, where they've tried to cross canines and humans and make, again, some sort of killing machine out of it.
Yeah, and we said it here on the show before, if it was a werewolf and they ever got one, they'd try to figure out how to turn that into something so that they could use as a daggum weapon. And don't fool yourself and think they don't. Because look, if you can't imagine that, you're not ready for Montauk and Fort Hero. And that was just there's so much. There's not enough time in the world.
When I was a kid, I farted in a mayonnaise jar and put it in the freezer to see if I could freeze a fart. And the first thought in my mind was, imagine, if you can, dropping those on a battlefield.
You're ahead of your time, Mr. Stockton.
Of course, I grew up, in Oak Ridge. My dad worked in National Laboratory and stuff, so I was
ahead of your time.
Atomic energy and all that stuff. But I thought, there must be a way to weaponize it.
Amazing.
My mom ended that experiment. I had to throw it away.
Absolutely amazing. Well, I'll tell you what. If the Kandahar Giant is not the be all and end all of the oddity and military involvement of paranormal, what the hell's going on story, I don't know what is. What do you think, Steve?
Yep, absolutely.
I think we did it justice. I think we could say goodnight to the good folks and tell them what you're doing this week.
I've got more videos coming out across all my channels, and what else have I got scheduled this week? I'll probably be on with Lee G.
We're taking it back, Jay. Taking it back.
What else have I got coming up? I'll be doing From Beyond. That's my UFO and related phenomenon channel. I'll be live over there Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Lee G and I.
Wednesday.
And there's some other videos coming up.
Lee, I like Lee. He's such a talented young man.
He's a good guy. He is.
A talented young man. Hey, Hangin', how you doing tonight, honey? Vixen Doe, did I say hi to you? Hi, Desert. Welcome. It's good to see y'all. Scott, always good to see you. Jack, everybody. It's lovely seeing y'all. And I'm sorry I wasn't here last night. We'll see you next week. Hopefully in the middle of the week. And hey, if you're of a mind, don't forget we've got these great let me see if we'll share it one more time, Steve, and then we're out of here. What do you think?
Yeah, go to the merch store. Buy those for your friends and neighbors. Start stocking up now. You can give them away on Halloween.
I love them. I do. I think they're really cool. I like the travel mugs, but the t-shirts, I think they're running a sale right now. They're $16. So if you went to a concert, you know what I mean?
Before somebody else does.
Yeah. And if you went to a concert, you'd buy a t-shirt. So just imagine this as the Cisco and Crispy tour, and get yourself one or something else, or get you a button or sticker or something else. We appreciate it.
Give till it helps people.
Oh God, I'm stuck. Wait a minute. Let me get out of here. I'm pushing buttons, Steve. I'm gonna wreck it. Okay, we got to find something. Get us out of here. Man, I hate that I lost everything on my computer. Like I said, it's awful. But see if we get you something here. I got something. Here we go, guys. All right, guys. See you during the week if you're going to be in the live chats for some mysteries or something like that. and we'll figure it out along the way. If not, see you back here Sunday and Monday with Mr. Stockton. And I don't know what we got coming, but I guarantee you it's going to be.
It'll be good, whatever it is.
It'll be good. And I love y'all. And I love y'all. Good night, Steve. I love you. My love to Mrs. Stockton and little Stockton, little baby Stockton.
He's on the way. The third trimester.
And again, I'm not joking. You look wonderful.
Thank you.
You know, it's good to see you, my friend. Take care. And give her a hug for me too. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Take care.
Thanks,
Be
everybody.
good humans.